Alright guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today. For this one we are still in Copenhagen. This time we are at Nørreport station, right on the edge of Nørrebro, and we're going to have a little look at the Amager Bryghus Taproom. I've been here once or twice before but I've never filmed, so I just thought, well, why not? And we've got a special guest on this video, so hope you guys enjoy this one. So guys, yeah, just to let you see what's on the tap list here, so you can see over there, Panzer Pils, Bamboozled, which is another New England IPA, Lardy Dardy, a Session New England IPA, Todd the Axeman, one of the classic beers from Amager Bryghus, one that I'm still yet to try, Batch 1000, one of the best West Coast IPAs around in my opinion for quite a while, Bastard Princess, their first New England IPA, Dragor Brown, very old beer, Mortician Imperial Stout, we have Faith and Futures, a New England IPA, Taradiddle, another New England IPA, Necro Shine, which is a dry hop Vienna lager, could be quite interesting, one from Copenhagen, the Duchesse Cherry, which is cool, Dry and Bitter, Droop Lord, Primator Weizen, which I've never heard of, and Brauerei Het Anker Galden Carolus classic, and you can also get a flight for 100 Danish kroners, so that is maybe about 11-12 euros, something like that, so pretty decent. Yeah, good prices here. And as you can see, more Amager artwork up here. There is the Panzer Pils, so that is going to be our first tasting then, the Panzer Pils. Alright guys, so first tasting then here at Amager Bryghus Taproom in Nørrebro. So first beer I decided to go for was the Panzer Pils. So this one comes in at 4.6% ABV. As the name suggests to you, this one is a Pilsner, and I have had this beer before actually. I had it in cans a couple of months back and it was pretty solid actually, so kind of interesting to try this one on tap and see how we go while I wait for my friend to appear. So yeah, as you can see with this one, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour, which is what you would expect from a Pilsner. Of course this one's got a little bit of natural haze to it, so it looks very good. When it poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would have said kind of cream coloured head, but yeah, it looks really nice. So yeah, nice kind of medium kind of golden coloured haze on this one. It looks pretty good. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma and see how we go. So aroma wise, this one is kind of interesting. It's quite well balanced. It's got like it's got a good little bit of yeasty character to it and a little bit of maltiness, which I like. But yeah, it's good. So in the malt base, lovely soft white bread, bit of bread crust in there. Some nice wee kind of biscuity malts as well, I would say. You can certainly smell the crispness of the Pilsner malt and a wee bit of that kind of caramelly, McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So it's good. A little bit more yeasty than I remember it being in the can, right enough. If I remember rightly, this one has Czech Sats and Hallertau Mittelfrüh hops in it, so a little bit of Czech and a little bit of German influence in there, but you certainly get a wee bit of earthiness. You get some nice bright floral aromaticity, very slightly spicy, which is more slightly due to the Czech hop rather than the German one. A little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing going on. I wouldn't describe it as being overly zesty. There's a little bit of zest, but also a wee bit of a kind of wet, leafy, grassy sort of thing in this one. So yeah, I like how that goes together, absolutely. On the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. A little bit of a kind of gooseberry note out of this one I get actually. A little bit of pear, wee bit of spicy apple, but fruits are quite oily, I would say, overall. But on the fruity, spilling a little bit, on the fruity side of things, it actually comes across as being a little bit oily, which I quite like. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. The Panzer Pils, 4.6% ABV, one of Amager Bryghus' own beers here at the Taproom in Nørrebro. Let's go for it. Slange. Oh, that's good. I'm going to say straight away, this beer is better on tap than it is in the can. The can I think just wasn't quite as wet and as crisp as this one is, so I think on tap this beer is quite a bit better than the can, and you don't normally find such a big difference with the Amager beers. Normally they're kind of roughly about the same, but I think this one is significantly better on tap than it is on the out of the can, so that's kind of interesting, but this is very nice on tap. So yeah, straight away with this beer, it gives you a lovely kind of mix of oily and creamy character actually, which is kind of interesting. So straight away across the middle of the palate, lovely smooth kind of white bready notes in there. You definitely get a wee bit of a kind of lighter bread crusty quality. So yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one. You can feel the bread crust is the backbone, the soft white bread on top. You feel a bit more yeastiness on the back of the palate. You definitely get a wee bit of yeastiness and crackery quality on the back third of your palate. The middle third of your palate, on top of everything, you feel a little bit of a soft kind of bready biscuity kind of mix. Definitely some McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. Pilsner malt isn't so obvious. It doesn't give you a lot of those big kind of crisp qualities that you can often get, but there's a nice little bit of which is just a nice little bit of almost creamy character to this one, which is quite interesting. But on the hoppy side of things, a little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate, a little bit smooth, but as you move further forward, it's very, very slightly kind of herbal. And as you push forward, a little bit more floral and aromatic, nice little bit of lighter grassy sort of thing. And then, yeah, it's a wee touch zesty, but again, quite wet and leafy. Fruity side of the beer is quite oily. Again, you get a wee bit of gooseberry in there, a nice bit of oily gooseberry, a little bit of kind of pear as well. Not so much in the way of sort of those kind of spicy appley characters you can sometimes get from Sats and Hallertau, but the fruity side of this beer is nice and oily. But to round off then for the mouthfeel wise, I'd say this is kind of bottom end of mid-bodied, top end of light-bodied. It's actually quite a heavy pilsner in a lot of ways. But very smooth at the same time, so it's got that nice oily kind of clean thing that you often get from Scandinavian beers. Not so much crispness to this one. It's almost got quite a bit of Helles character to it, this beer actually, which I think it is actually a little bit more like a kind of Dortmund or Helles in some ways. It's got that kind of clean, slightly crisp character, but not as straight up and zippy as a Pilsner can be. But in terms of IBUs, I think this is a fairly standard 20 or so, maybe a little bit less. Malty base is smooth, there's a slight degree of sweetness to it, and then you've got some nice oily fruity characters. So yeah, this was the Panzer Pils, 4.6% ABV, one of Amager Bryghus' own beers, and yeah, nice to try it on tap. But I would say the tap version is quite a bit better than the can, which, as I say, you don't normally find. But hope you enjoyed this one. We've got a few more tastings to go. Catch you in a second. Alright guys, you might recognise this guy, Peter, the master of hoppets. So, I was in Copenhagen, Peter messaged me like, I'm in Copenhagen, let's have a beer. So, here we are.
We're having a beer.
We are having a beer. So, the beer that we're going for is Bastard Princess, which was Amager Bryghus' very first New England IPA. 6% ABV, and the hops were
Columbus, Simcoe, and Citra hops.
So yeah, I think, when did they release this? This would have been like 2017 or something?
Yeah, I actually can't remember it, to be 100% honest. I think I reviewed it out of Crowler, I think even, when I had it. But I think maybe prior to this, they also did the Trillium collab, Sick to Broad? Or maybe it was after. I'm not sure.
I think that was after. I think that might have been after, because I got the very first, I got it in bottle. I had the 330, because it was one of the first 330s they released. So yeah, I think about 2017. I think Sick to Broad was the next one I did after that. We can check afterwards.
Yeah. But I had both the Ama and the Trillium version.
Yeah,
back then.
That's awesome. I'm jealous. But yeah, no. So basically, we've chosen 3 IPAs that we're going to do. I thought this would be cool as the very first New England IPA that Amager Bryghus did, and then you'll see the other ones in a little minute. So yeah, as you can see, colour-wise, I'd say basically pale yellow, like mango juice colour.
Yeah, it's like really golden or light yellow. It's like really bright.
Yeah, so lovely looking beer. Haze level for a 6%er. It's kind of okay. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest you'll come across, but still pretty impressive for a 6%er, I think.
It's almost like being in the UK. They almost fill the glass to the brim.
Yeah. Well, it's Denmark. You guys are probably better for that. But yeah, aroma. Look at that. For me, very soft and oaty leaning on the malt base.
Yeah, I don't think it's like crazy expressive. There's definitely a good hop character. I'm getting a lot of Simcoe character. I'm getting loads of like actually grapefruit, but also some pineapple.
See, I actually find this quite soft. I would agree with you on the pineapple, but I find it quite like, mango-y. I actually find it quite soft and mango-y.
I think there's mango for sure.
Because for me, grapefruit's like quite I always find grapefruit quite strong and pungent.
Yeah.
Whereas this for me is quite soft in a way.
It is softer, but there's for me some kind of like slightly citric vibe that reminds me like sugar coated, not pink grapefruit, but a regular grapefruit. But big doughy breadiness to it as well.
Yeah, I think this one you definitely underneath soft white bread. You do get a little bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose, I think. But I get quite a lot of. I think the more you smell it, the more the wheaty bitiness comes out. But I got a lot of oatiness initially, a lot of smooth oatiness. So quite smooth, creamy, soft white bready.
A little bit of sweet citrus. Like classic citra hop flavor.
Yeah, I think there is quite a lot of citrus to this one. But I think on the malty side of it, it's not really a sweet one. This is more a smooth New England
which is
IPA.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm sick of sweet New England IPAs.
Oh yeah.
I want dry beer again, man.
We were talking about this earlier. So one of the beers you'll see later is, in my opinion, a bit of a Danish classic, and we're going to review that one a little bit later. Because that can't be on tap, and then we don't try it.
No.
But yeah, malty nice and smooth. Fruity wise, we've done that. Green component for me is quite floral.
Yeah,
I'd say quite floral.
it smells like it's really fresh too.
Yeah.
Like there is like a little bit of a green hop matter thing. I don't think it's a lot, but there's just like a touch of a floral kind of thing.
Yeah. So for me, grassy at the front of those, and then nice bright floral character in this one. It's not really a wet leafy character you get from this one. I find it quite zesty and grassy, quite bright.
It smells good.
But yeah, it's lovely. Stuck in then.
Skål.
Skål. Yeah. That's in very nice condition.
It has like I wouldn't call it bitterness because it's not really bitter. You can really taste that there's a lot of lupulin in suspension, like the yellow powder from the hop, because it gives a slight astringent bite on the palate. And I find that often in New England IPAs when they're really, really fresh. And a lot of people call it a hop bite, but I don't think it's a hop bite when it's this low. Like hop bite for me is more when it bites into your tongue and it burns. This doesn't burn. It's just like a slight, almost like how tannins feel in a wine, like a dry,
a bit zippy almost.
Yeah.
So I would say that is the thing. Yeah, I think the further you go into the aftertaste, the more you get the green component out of it. I do find that this one, if we talk about the green component first, then I think there's a wee touch of earthiness in the back of the corner palate.
Columbus probably, and like chivy, almost oniony.
Yeah, because Columbus is that spicy. It's usually quite spicy. Isn't it?
Columbus is like really often spicy. And one of the big things I got from Columbus myself is also like chives or onion, like an undertone of that, like just like an earthy, oniony.
I can see what you mean with that, actually. Yeah.
And then like it definitely has the similar fruit profile as we talked about on the aroma, but I feel like it's actually more earthy and like grassy green than I expected from the aroma.
Yes, I do find this one quite earthy, and it's earthier than I remember it actually. But I find the floral character in this one is again quite bright. The grassiness isn't quite as zesty as I expected from the aroma, but it's certainly there. It's quite soft as well. I think this overall, I would say this beer is quite a wet, soft New England IPA, which is interesting.
And it's also drier, and it's like. It sounds weird to say that beer feels very wet on the palate because it is wet, it's liquid. But compared to other New England IPAs, it doesn't have like that like super creamy, velvety, thick mouthfeel. I don't think it's watery, but it just feels a little bit thinner and drier, and I don't mind that. I think it makes it a bit more drinkable. But also one thing I'm noticing is that it doesn't have a huge expressive yeast character.
Yeah,
it's actually more hop focused.
Yeah, no, I think this is what we were saying earlier, like actually the malt base on this one, as we were saying, for me, if we focus on the malt base, because I think that leads into what you're saying, for me, backbone is bready, back third of your palate, you can feel a bit of the yeastiness there, but a bit of the wheaty bitiness as well. Middle third of your palate, I think, is more soft and bread crusty, and then a wee bit of oat on top of it. But this beer, for me, doesn't have any sweetness in that sense. It's quite smooth overall. It's not. I don't think there's any biscuit or Maris Otter or something like this that's going to give you a biscuit brown sugar component. Don't get any of that in this. So this is a very old school IPA. You're talking a similar idea to Stigberg's Amazing Haze, New Sweden IPA, these kind of things. It's an old school New England IPA this, but when it's their first one, that's what you expect. Fruity wise, I actually do get a bit of grapefruit out of this. Yeah. I do get a bit of grapefruit on the flavour, but not in the aroma, which is interesting. But otherwise,
I think it has a bit of pineapple too, and also mango, almost like spicy green mango, because it has a bite of spice as well from the hop. And then just like green hop flavor, and then like again, it has like that digging tannic lupulin kind of thing, not like hop burn or anything, just like a little bit that dries out, and like it feels bitter, but not in the same way. Like bitterness is perceived differently often. Like a thing we don't know too much about beer is bitterness. Actually, there's much more to bitterness than kettle hops.
Yeah.
So the bitterness you get out of like dry hopping or like this, I feel like it feels like different on the tongue. It's almost like when you have something dry and tannic, like drinking wine. Whereas if they're like if you have a West Coast IPA, the bitterness is like drying, biting on the back end, which I really love. I feel like because this also like that stringent, dry kind of like almost like it's almost like licking pith of citrus fruit.
Yeah.
There's like this drying pithiness to it. But I like it. I think it's nice.
Yeah, the fruit is quite soft, but at the same time, yeah, I can see that you get dryness. Because for me, I always find you get a bit of maltiness under the fruit, and for me, it's the kind of dry side of the oats that are sitting under the fruit.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think a bit of grapefruit, that you can feel it mellows out to a passion fruit for me.
Yeah. I agree.
Soft mango, pineapple at the front of the thing, and I think there's Centennial in this, so I think there's a wee bit of a lemony zest going on as well. I get a lemony zest right behind
Columbus.
Columbus.
Columbus Citrus Simcoe.
Ah, okay. I get a wee bit of lemony zest on the front of the palate, then, but then Citra gives you a lemon bite as well.
Citra gives loads of different flavor.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. It's quite nice to try this beer again after such a long time. And as I say, I was quite happy to come in and see that there was 2 quite classic Amager beers on tap. But yeah,
well, actually 3.
Oh yeah.
Todd.
The third one. Yeah, this one we're going to do Todd next because that's one of Peter's favourite beers, and we'll leave the other one until it comes. But yeah, mouthfeel to round off then. For me, top end to mid-bodied maybe. Smooth carbonation, again quite wet actually, as we were saying. But the Panzer pills that I had before actually felt quite wet, so maybe it's something to do with the conditioning on the casks.
Or maybe it's the water profile. That could also be it.
I always find that the Scandinavian beers feel quite clean compared to things from other places in Europe, but
it also comes like down to what yeast you use in the beer and all kinds of things.
Yeah. But yeah, quite a wet, clean feeling New England IPA.
Yeah, there's not like that big pop of sweet, juicy esters. Like it feels more hop-centric. There is a juiciness to it, but it's not the same like crazy overripe whatever flavors you get in more modern IPA. But I don't mind that. It's a bit more of an old school approach, and I like old school.
I like the old school stuff as well. IBUs, I think this is slightly more than 30. I think we're about 40 for this maybe. Malt base, as we said, smooth rather than being sweet, and the fruity side for me is quite juicy but a little bit dry, like Peter was saying, I think. So I'd agree with that. But yeah, guys, that is your first tasting for this one. So next up, we are going to do one of Peter's favourite Amager beers, Todd. So catch you in a second with that. Alright guys, so just to let you see where we are there, you can see the bar, Amager Bryghus Taproom, but then if we face north, you can see there, we are literally right next to Nørreport metro station, and from here you can go straight to the airport and things. So yeah, pretty good. But let's take a little walk in and have a little look around the bar. So, as you can see when we go in, it's actually really nice, modern interior. One of the cool things is you'll see all the artwork from the beers on the wall there. So there is Todd the Axeman, one of their famous beers. And if you go around, it's actually a kind of medium-sized bar this, but again, some of the things from the Sinners series and stuff up there, the artwork that they have on these beers is pretty awesome. But yeah, really nice bar. We'll get a closer look at the tap room in a minute. But as I said, on this video, we have a special guest, Peter, the Master of Hoppets, and his girlfriend, Nene. So yeah, let's do some tastings. Right guys, second tasting then. This is one of Peter's favourites, so he should introduce this one.
Yes. Todd the Axeman from Amager Bryghus. Todd the Axeman is almost like an Amager Bryghus classic by now. It's been a staple of their range for a long time. Originally a collab with Todd Hogg, who used to be one of the brewers at Surly. And they did a collab. They also did a collab with his wife called Linda the X Grinder. So they did like just different metal themed collabs. And this was an IPA, 6.5%. First time they used Golden Promise malt, I believe. And then the main hop featured is Mosaic. It also has Citra and Hercules. released for bittering, I think. But CTC. But yeah, as far as I remember, Mosaic bomb.
Yeah, and you said this was kind of West Coasty, but more juicy.
Yeah, it was like fruity. You see, slightly hazy. It's not like a full-on hazy New England. It's like almost. It's also bitter.
Yeah, I mean, if I looked at this, I would think it's a kind of one of these West Coast unfiltered natural haze kind of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, colour-wise, I would say sort of more rich, kind of mixed tropical fruit juice colour. This one for me. Say, I think when we poured it, it had sort of cream-coloured head, half finger. So yeah, as you can see, natural haze to it, more West Coasty, so we don't expect it to be soupy and gloopy. So aroma.
Yeah.
That's really fruity and juicy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice. It's much more aromatic than what we just had.
Yeah. So I mean, just first impressions would be bready, biscuity, green components, not too pungent, I think, and then quite soft and juicy actually. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting loads of Mosaic. I think it's a Mosaic bomb. It's that like dank, almost blueberry-esque Mosaic vibe for me. Lots of citrus, sweet citrus. Yeah. Almost kush.
Yeah, see, I get quite a lot of tangerine out of it.
Yeah.
Tangerine.
Totally.
I've always found Mosaic. In some ways, in some beers, I think you get the blueberry from the Mosaic, but
Not all.
Not all of them. Yeah, I find that nearly all the time though you get tangerine. You get that soft, oily tangerine. So yeah.
I also always think Mosaic has a pronounced dankness compared to a lot of other hops. Like I often get that a little bit of a weedy dankness from Mosaic.
Yes,
Even in New England IPA.
I find it always quite floral and quite deep in its floral character. So maybe that's what you're saying is dankness.
Well, dankness is the smell of weed, really, marijuana.
Ah,
So I get connotations to kush when I smell this. Not a lot, like it's not the same, but there is a little bit of that for me.
Yeah. One thing I should point out, by the way, guys, I've never tried this one. I've actually never tried this beer. Just one that I never got around to because I always used to see it, but then when I came over to Copenhagen, it was always like, let's get the newest thing from Amager. And this one was here all the time, so I just never bothered, but I should have. So maybe I'll buy a can of this before we go, actually, because I think they've got it in can.
They have.
So yeah, I think I'll need to get a can of this to take away and review with me. But yeah, so malt base for me, bread crusty against the backbone, soft white bread, but you get a bit of that more biscuity McVitie's digestive sort of thing. That's the golden promise. Yeah. So for me, that's that. I find this one's got a bit of that crackery, yeasty kind of thing to it as well.
A little bit.
Yeah. And on the green component, for me, I think there's a bit of earthiness. I always find Mosaic's a little bit earthy.
It is. It's a cross between Nugget and Simcoe. So that's why you often get a little bit of that, like, also earthy vibes. It's almost like new school meets old school kind of hop.
Yeah. But I like that. Yeah, green component, like you say, I can see the sort of weeds kind of danky sort of thing to it. I think normally I would say that's like it's quite deep and floral, but I find quite a bit of zestiness on the grassy thing with this too. So yeah. But yeah, fruits for me, I see where you get the blueberries from, but quite oily and tangerine for me.
Yeah, really tangerine.
And quite zesty at that as well, I would say.
It smells much like a classic kind of like fruity IPA. I don't know if I'd say aroma-wise, it's I don't know if I'd call it West Coast because it's not like really like it doesn't have like a really oily citrus. It's a bit more fluffy, fruity. It's almost like I guess what you call Midwest IPAs back in the day.
Yeah, I've not had. I mean, I guess the one everyone would know when it comes to Midwest IPAs, because Three Floyds doesn't really.
Three Floyds. It's a very Three Floyds like beer actually. If you think of theirs like Zombie Dust and Arctic Panzer Wolf, and these kind of IPAs.
Yeah, because I never had too many of those. But what's the one with the dinosaurs on it again in Iowa?
There's Soda Sioux and King Sioux.
What's the brewery though?
Toppling Goliath.
That's it, Toppling Goliath. Yeah, they for me were the ones that you could always get a hold of. But yeah, let's try this. This is quite cool to try one of Peter's favourite Danish beers. So
it is actually. I wanted to say this as well. Give a big shout out to Danish beer blogger Torbjørn, because him, me, and a lot of other Danish beer bloggers were involved in creating a modernized Danish beer can, where you have a canon of must-try beers if you want to explore Danish beer. There was made one, like, was it 2003, 6, something like that, with a lot of outdated beers. Mostly it was like lagers. And now we made a new list, and this was one of the beers I wanted to vote in, but someone beat me to it, so I voted 2 other beers. We made a list. The beer I suggested be on it, or that got on the list, is Høgerbejer, which is a Pilsner from Hancock. It's an old school beer, but it's one of the best larger produced Pilsners in the country. But this is also a beer that needed to be on that list.
I would see, if it was me, I would argue for batch 1000 as well.
Yeah, but it had to be something you could still get. And that was before they rebrewed it.
Ah, right, okay.
Or at least we started the preparation. It had to be something you could always find.
Right, okay.
Almost always.
Now I understand that then, yeah.
Let's try it.
But yeah, one of Peter's favourite beers. There we go.
Cheers.
Well, we never clinked. There we go.
There we go.
Slange it.
Let's go. Oh, it's dry. Oh man, I miss dry beer. It's not crazy bitter. There's a little bit of bitterness.
You sounded like a proper hillbilly when you said, "Man, I miss dry beer."
I miss dry beers, man. I don't like that dainty fruity stuff. No, this is quite fruity, but it's really good. It is bitter. It is it's like that feeling, that nice drying sensation on the back of the palate. I miss that so much in IPAs.
See, for me, it's kind of like right in the middle of the West Coast and the New England.
I agree.
It's like it's almost like a hybrid IPA in a lot of ways. So for me, it comes across smooth and bready, like the Golden Promise.
Yeah.
You can see right away out of this because it's smooth and New England light
and
and
it gives a
malty.
great texture.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of like porridge is the thing that comes to mind. The malt base has that sort of porridgey feel to it, but yeah, bread crusty backbone, sort of porridgey, smooth bread on top of that, and then in the middle of your palate you get a wee bit of that concentrated, biscuity, brown, sugary sort of thing. What percentage is this again?
6.5.
Because I had thought this was a double IPA, but obviously not. And I think I've had that misconception for quite a while actually. But yeah, quite a bit of that concentrated, biscuity thing to mask the booziness, and then a bit lighter and sweeter, if you like, as you go out to the extremities of the middle of the palate. I think back third, there is a wee bit of yeastiness there. You can feel that more airy, bready sort of thing, but
I think like all of the like malt and everything is definitely on the backdrop. This is one of those beers where it's a very soft, understated malt backbone. It's there, but it's really made for a canvas for hops to shine. There's great hop character on this, and there's so much mosaic, which is a hop I think shines very well in this type of IPA.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's because I think when it comes to the West Coast IPAs, there's 2 ways you can take it. You can go to the more bready, biscuity end of the spectrum, such as Pliny the Elder, or you can go to the more oily, caramelly end of the spectrum, like Sierra Nevada Torpedo.
Yeah.
For me, that's how I always talk about these 2 beers. And this one, I'd say, is more towards the Pliny side of things, definitely. So it's a more, but I'd say, as I say, you get a bit of that. I don't think this beer has oats in it, does it? I don't think it does.
No, it's all Golden Promise.
It's all just Golden Promise, yeah. So, but Golden Promise, when you try a beer like this that's not a New England and it's just got Golden Promise, you can see why Golden Promise works with these New England beers, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, because it is also really soft. It has a soft texture.
Yeah.
But the green flavors that you talk about, I think there is some understated green, leafy, cushy vibes on it. I don't think it's an abundance, but it's hugely tangerine-y. Hugely, like a huge mosaic ball.
Yeah, but I see what you mean with the green side. It's some Christiania goodness in it. But yeah, no, for me, a bit earthy in the back.
Yeah.
We touch herbal as you come further forward, not that kind of herbal. But yeah, deep green dankness, Christiania type sort of thing. Round the front curve of the palate, quite a bit of grassy zestiness to it, and I think when you go further into the aftertaste with it, it feels a bit wetter and leafier. Yeah. But for me, the fruity part of the beer on the front third of your palate, tangerine all the way, I think. But there's something.
There is a little bit of that blueberry thing, I think, as well from Mosaic. But like tangerine, and I think also because it's both Citra and Mosaic, both of these are really supercharged sweet citrus fruit.
Yeah,
Hot.
it is quite zesty. I mean, yeah, there is a bit of a lemon limey thing, I think, behind the front tip of the palate.
I see that
So
too.
definitely lemon. There is a wee bit of lemon lime from the Citra in this, and I think that's going to be particularly pertinent if Citra's being used as one of the bittering hops, one of the early additions. So
And I think there's also a little touch of generic tropical fruit flavor. Like if you have like a multi-fruit juice, like it's like not 100% definable tropical fruit, but it's like just like tropical fruit cocktail type flavor, just a little bit.
yeah, but whatever it is, it's
middle.
nice.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's nice. But I think if we're talking tropical fruit, I'm tempted to say it's not. It's maybe got a little bit of zip to it, but it's not quite as sharp as peach.
No.
It's not quite as sharp as peach, but there's definitely a bit of zip to this beer, so I like that. But let's round off with the mouthfeel, I guess. For me, top end to mid-bodied maybe.
Yeah.
Carbonation's got a degree of crispness to it.
Yeah, which I think is awesome in this style, and then it has like a crisp snap because of the carbonation, even though it is a very soft malt body, and then it just dries out really beautifully on the back end with a nice drying, lingering bitterness that makes you do this more beer.
Yeah. I think the malty side of the beer as well, smooth underneath but sweeter. I think you get, the more that you drink of this, the sweeter it gets, I think. More biscuity and sweet. The fruity side for me is quite oily, and I think that's again something that develops the more you drink of it. IBUs, this has got to be about maybe 60, 50, 60, kind of that mark. It's not,
It probably is. I'm very curious, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's not the highest of high.
It's not into the 80 kind of range. I think this is more...
I wonder if they actually have that stated anywhere.
Yeah. Because, Untappd can sometimes be a little bit...
Yeah,
a
sometimes
little
it's
bit inaccurate on these. I think people guess what it is. But,
yeah, unless someone is actually in charge from the brewery running the. It's just 98 IBUs.
That's never 98.
Well, I think the perception of IBU is also really different. Like, it depends on so many things in the beer. It depends on, like, it might have a 90 IBU, but if the beer is really sweet, you don't perceive the bitterness as much.
Yeah.
Like, this is a bit more sweetness than, for example, other West Coast IPAs.
Yeah.
So that could be part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting anyway, and it's quite, as I say, quite cool to get around to trying this one. So yeah, one of Peter's favourite beers, Todd the Axeman
Fantastic.
from Amager Bryghus. Very nice, sort of Midwest IPA, halfway between a New England and a West Coast. But I'd say it leans, it's maybe 25% New England, 75% West Coast, something like that. It's somewhere there. But yeah, I'm going to get a can of this and do a proper sit-down review when I've got a fully clean palate and so on. So yeah, cool to do this one. So next one coming up, and the next one, in my opinion, is one of the best Danish West Coast IPAs you're going to find, and at the time it was one of the best ones in Europe. So catch you guys in a second with this one. Cheers. Alright guys, so last tasting with Peter then, because Peter's got to go to Peter's. So, yes.
Peter's going to go to Peter.
Peter's going to go to Peter's, yeah. So, for our last tasting together, we are doing the Batch 1000, in my opinion, one of the best West Coast IPAs in Europe at the time, and I think still one of the kind of best old school West Coast IPAs that you're going to find from Denmark. They recently released Batch 2000, but
It was nice, but it's not as good.
nice, but maybe it's the nostalgia factor as well. This is one of the things, I don't know.
I think it's also because this is a bit more unique, because this has Sriracha hops. Sriracha is a hop that Amma was quite well versed with in their plethora of IPAs, and they used it a lot back in the day. No one really uses it anymore, but it's a very unique hop, and it produces some awesome flavors. Mainly something that is almost like lemongrass and dill-like.
Yeah, because I think the American, a lot of the time now, you'll find that the Sriracha Ace is grown in America, and it's very difficult to get. Good. The Sriracha Ace you get now is the one that's grown in America rather than the original Japanese. So the Japanese one is even more citrusy. Like if you go over to Japan from breweries like Uchu Brewing, I think West Coast Brewing that they have over there still use some. So a few breweries will do things with Sriracha Ace, the original Japanese one. But yeah, this was one of my favourite beers. I was really glad to find it on tap. So let's look at it. So this
Quick
one,
note, I already had a pint.
yes, you did.
When I just arrived.
You did. But yeah, this one. So I'd say kind of This is a sort of light amber.
Yeah, it looks more like what I remember from classic West Coast IPAs.
Yeah,
like a light amber color.
So I mean, you can quite obviously tell this one's going to have a little bit of caramel or carapils, or something like this that's a bit more brown sugary orientated.
I think I remember they talked about. I talked to Jakob from the brewery that often they use Munich malt for coloring in their IPAs, so you get like a little bit of color and like some doughy breadiness, but not like that sweet caramel. I don't know if this has Munich, but I remember he talked about that back in the day.
I've never actually met Jakob. I've met Morton, I think it is. I've met Morton, but I've not met Jakob actually before. But, the thing is, these guys were always awesome at West Coast IPAs. Arctic Sunshine was one of my favourites. I think that was a paleo.
Yeah, collab with 3 Floyds.
Yeah, Arctic Sunshine was lovely. Winter in Bangalore I liked as well. That had Indian hops in it from what I remember. So, yeah, that's a really good one. If you ever come across Winter in Bangalore, Arctic Sunshine.
Arctic Sunstone.
Yes, Arctic Sunstone, yeah. These for me are classics, but
this is also a classic.
This is definitely a classic. So it's cool to see that this has been. I think they've rebrewed it twice or something now since they did batch 2000.
They did batch 2000 and then rebrewed this as well, and then they rebrewed it again because apparently people wanted it back, which I'm happy to hear because it's a fantastic beer.
It is definitely, and as Peter said, I think in one of the other tastings, it's good to have something a bit more bitter.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Not everything has to be juicy.
Yeah, but lovely looking beer this. Half finger of kind of cream coloured head, a little bit of natural haze, that's what you want. Aroma.
Sriracha Ace is there like instantly.
Yeah, you get that grassy, lemony sort of thing, absolutely.
There's definitely also like an Amarillo character or something like that. If you talk about. There's like oily citrus, like oily orange.
Big oily orange. I love these big old school oily orangey leaning IPAs. If you've got Amarillo in there, I'm going to like it. But for me,
I'm not sure if Amarillo's in there, but there's that character.
I'm pretty sure that Amarillo or Mosaic's in this just for the aroma. I don't think this is a bit before Azaka's time, I think.
Yeah.
The other one would be Mandarin of Bavaria, but not a hop that these guys were known for. And I don't think Amager don't tend to use New Zealand stuff, so but I mean, for me, as a first impression, bready malt base, lots of kind of, I get quite a bit of a kind of sweet, I do get a wee bit of caramel.
For me, it's like lightly toasted bread.
Yeah, maybe like a sort of pumpernickel sort of bread almost.
Yeah,
not quite.
Not as heavy. It's like an in between. We have in Denmark we have something called lenbold or lengangsbrød, which is like a brownish loaf, and it's like if you toast that, it's almost like something like that because it's not as, I don't think it's as dense maybe as a pumpernickel.
Yeah. So I can see where that comes from, absolutely. But yeah, the aroma of this is lovely on the malty side of things. For me, there is a sweet bit of caramel, McVitie's digestive biscuit, a sort of brownie, very slightly rye bread. How do you say the bread? The
Lengangsbrød, I think it's lenbrød.
Lenbrød, so like, for me it's not quite as strong as rye bread, but it's not quite a straight up wholemeal bread, it's somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
The malty side of this beer is lovely. And I think this is quite interesting for me because obviously being Scottish beer, we have quite a bit of a sweet tooth malt heads basically, so this is why I always look at the malt side of the beer first. So it's quite interesting because you always go for the hops and the fruits, but for me I look at the malts first, so this is an interesting difference in beer tuber style, I guess.
I think it's also just for me like it's what jumps out of the glass first. For me, it's like it's the aroma of the hops. It's like this like lemongrassy dill, like fun, cool herbal thing, and then like the oily citrus part. There's some grapefruit, sweet citrus.
Because for me, as going into beer, it was Rauch beers and then Scotch ales, quads, these more malty things. That was how I got into it, and then I tried the IPAs. I was maybe come at it from a slightly different.
I had a classic Danish beer, and I had my fix, because I had hop fix, and then I was stuck there.
So it's interesting.
Well, I had some American hoppy beer first, but I loved hop fix back then.
I think it's interesting though just to see the difference in beer tuber styles that way, because like Peter says, it's what comes out of the glass at you, but for me it's the bread. You can smell the German bread, you can smell the sweetness for me straight away, then I start to get the hoppiness. So green component, right?
I think I don't think there's a lot of it. I think it's very bright and light and singy and uplifting. The aroma in terms of, if we talk green, when you say green component, do you mean like spiciness and everything?
Yeah, I talk about the earth. I mean, I think there's a slight earthiness to this.
I think there is, and I think as a green component, maybe you could encompass lemongrass and dill because it's technically a spicy note, even though it's oriental.
Yeah.
Or at least lemongrass.
Yeah, no, I think there is a wee bit of earthiness in there. Floral notes, I think, take it back. See, grassiness, there is a wee bit of zestiness there.
Yeah.
That makes me think Amarillo.
Yeah.
But I think the earthiness makes me think Mosaic as well.
Like Amarillo always makes me think of oily citrus fruit, like oily citrus zest.
Yeah.
Think oily orange, oily tangerine. That's often what I get about from Amarillo, because it's like a combo of like fruitiness and juicy profiles, but also like dry, oily pithiness.
Yeah.
But it smells awesome. I really want to try.
I really like it. Yeah. So yeah, just fruitiness. Or I think we've said oranges all the way. Anything else? Maybe a soft apricot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking dried stone fruits.
Yeah. I think apricot. Maybe so.
Because it's a bit sweeter and the malt backbone and everything is almost like dry.
See, I get a little bit of sultana.
So sultanas we don't have in Denmark. But are they like dried raisins?
Dried white grapes.
Okay.
So raisins, dried dark grapes. Sultanas, dried white.
I've never had a sultana.
This is what I've been saying in videos. You don't get sultanas in Scandinavia. So yeah. But yeah, for me, dried white green grape, apricot definitely, big oily orangey notes. Let's go for it.
It smells awesome.
Slange it.
Cheers. Let's go. Bing, 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 bing. Joe D style.
Yeah.
That is awesome beer.
2 thumbs up on the beer scale.
Oh, that's so good. This is a beer I could crush for days. Like, I had a pint earlier. I wouldn't mind after this having a full pint again and having a full pint again, because it encompasses so many things you want in an IPA. Dryness, bitterness, fruity hop flavor, a bit of a malt backbone. There is your like a green earthy component as well. Like it just ticks so many boxes.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, this beer arrived in This was out in 2015. I think I'm sure this was 2015. This was released because it was just after I arrived in Sweden. So I think 2015 this came out. At the time, this was the best West Coast IPA around in Scandinavia and potentially around Europe. Difficult to say because there's so many breweries, but it is a classic. And going back to this is a bit of a nostalgia hit. And I've been saying this in videos, when you go back to a beer that strikes you so often, there's always a bit of nostalgia to this. You can encounter a brewery for the first time that you really enjoy, and I find quite often it's very difficult to top the first really good beer you have from them. And this was one of my first encounters with Amager, actually. And I still think it's very hard for them to beat this. Bastard Princess, I think, it was Arctic Sunstone as well, was slightly different. Winter in Bangalore was on the level with this. They've never really done West Coast IPAs to this level again, I think.
No. I think for me, like something like this and Todd the Axeman are some of the best IPAs they've done. That also are, like, I think it's also important in beer, we're a little bit philosophical. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that explodes in your face. That's really fun. And this is really flavorsome and exploding in your face with flavors. But it also has to have a high level of drinkability. Because really awesome beer for me, there's you can look at it in different ways, but there's like part of beer I love to revisit is beer I can have more of. Whereas it's really fun to geek out with really crazy over the top hop saturated beer. You're like, this is just crazy, but you only want like a half, and then you're good.
Yeah.
And that's why I think part of a beer like this is made a classic as well, is because it's also something you can easily return to.
Yeah.
It's not something where you have a half and you're like, I think I'm done. It's like, can I have another pint?
Yeah.
And I think drinkability for me, at least in the last few years, has become more interesting. Something I've become more into.
See, I would say that's probably because of the prominence of lagers going up.
Maybe.
I think that's something that's come in again over the last few years. Because I like, I've always been more of a taster than a drinker, if that
Same
makes
here.
sense. But this, quite easy to manage this. But I think it's lighter than I did back in the day, I mean, I would say overall, just as a first impression, this is a nice oily beer. It's not too oily. But it's certainly, when we're talking about West Coast IPAs, it's got a bit of that bready, biscuity sort of thing.
Yeah.
It leans to the oily end of the spectrum. There's more Sierra Nevada Torpedo rather than the Pliny the Elder spectrum. But
I think it has a bit of both worlds because it has like that oily thing that's talking about, but then it has like lots of bringy, singy, brighter kind of. There's definitely also like classic grapefruit flavor. There's also pine. There's like earthiness and resiny flavors. But then you have unique herbal components.
yeah,
You have that dill lemongrass thing, and I think there's even whiffs of tropical fruit in this as well.
so I think
And the dried stone fruit.
so let's break it down. Then. So malty backbone of the beer, definitely bread crust, white bread in this one. I think there's a bit of creaminess comes out of the beer later. Middle third of your palate, you do get a bit of that boozy caramel sort of thing. What we were saying about the bready biscuity versus the more oily West Coast IPA, I'd say 1/3 bready, 2/3 more oily, caramelly. I think that's maybe fair with this one. So yeah, it feels a bit boozy. This to me, if I blind tasted this, I would wonder if this was towards the 7-8%. I think it's only 6.5, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's that boozy per se. I think like it's just there's a lot of drying, lingering, biting hop flavor and bitter hop flavor. And I don't know. To me, I don't find this boozy. Like,
Yeah, I think
to me, it's just like lots of hop dryness and hop hop bitterness, hop oil.
See, yeah, I can get that. We'll come to that in a second. But for me, I get a lot of biscuitiness out of this later, and for me, the brown, I get a little bit of concentrated booziness in the middle of the palate. That's just me, maybe. But the green component, this is quite a high, but this has got to be 80-ish IBUs. I think
It
it's
has to be high.
it's up to this.
It feels a whole lot drier and bitter than Todd the Axeman. But
Yeah.
also, the perception of dryness is also something to do with your water composition. If you have high sulfate levels in your brewing water, you'll get a beer like this, and that's more West Coast like. It feels more dry and snappy, and on your palate, and it helps accentuate the hop flavor too.
Yeah, because it is. I find this one, and the green component as well, definitely a bit earthy, quite spicy on its floral component. So I think there's probably Columbus and maybe a bit of Chinook in this.
Possibly Columbus, because they use Columbus a lot.
They used to like Tomahawk as well.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. Columbus, Tomahawk,
CTZ they used to use.
Columbus, Tomahawk.
Yeah. So I think there's some of these classic early edition hops going on here. Front curve of your palate. This isn't overly zesty, but there is a good citrus component to this one on the front curve of your palate. But front third of your tongue, the fruity side of the beer, the oily character. For me, grapefruit and orange are the dominant forces in this. Yeah.
But also for me, like grapefruit, huge. But I really think Sriracha Haze plays a role, like a big role in this beer, and that's also why it's maybe a bit unique. Because I think if you compare it to other classic West Coast IPAs, it has a unique character that you don't find often. And I think it's the Sriracha Haze. Too bad they don't have it on draft right now, but I looked actually before coming here to meet up on their Instagram page. It was just not updated, but it said they had Wookiee IPA on tap. You remember that one?
I've never tried Wookiee actually.
So collab with Port Brewing, also West Coast IPA. That shares components with this, but this just stands out and is more unique because it has that huge, huge Sriracha Haze character.
Yeah, it is. I think that I see that you get that lemony, grassy sort of thing right on the tip of the palate with this. Absolutely. So this is just an awesome West Coast IPA. If you see this and you haven't had it, you need to. But I think we can round off on the mouthfeel.
Yeah.
For me, top end to mid bodies, maybe bottom end to full bodies.
I'd say mid-bodied, top end, and really dry. Really dry.
Yeah,
bone dry.
this is like, this is definitely like a sort of 80-90-ish IBU beer. This is what a West Coast IPA should be, and I'm glad that they didn't try to reinterpret this with the modern bitterness. Some of these modern West Coast IPAs, they take the bitterness down to 40 or 50, and I'm just like, nah, there's no point for me. That's just me being, it's just me being sort of.
I like the modern West Coast IPA, but I also like some modern West Coast IPAs keep the bitterness, but they do this style where it's like the lightest of all bodies, where it's the hops really shine, but then they hop it mainly like similarly to New England IPAs, not like with fermentation dry hops, but like big dry hop charges and like double dry hopping and all these. I know, well, a lot of West Coast breweries double dry hop before it was a marketing term. But they're using new school hops.
Yeah.
And new school hops in West Coast beers also work really well.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the new. That's one of the things. Like New Zealand West Coast IPAs were always awesome. And trying some of these new hops in it, like Enigma, I think would be a really interesting one. Strata as well would be really good.
I've had Strata West Coast IPAs. They're awesome.
I need to try those. Yeah, this is, as I say, one of the classic West Coast Danish IPAs. 80 IBUs. Good blend of smoothness, sweetness in the malt base. To me, it feels a little bit boozy. Peter disagrees with that. This happens between beer tubers as well. But nice oily, fruity character. Classic Danish West Coast IPA. I think this is a nice one to round off with. I'm going to film one more tasting here. Peter is going to Panzer's. So yeah, but awesome to have Peter on.
Thanks for having me
for these. It's good. And I need to go to Amager and visit Peter at some point.
Yeah, of course, you're always welcome. You can come and have cask ale. We have a cask pub.
Yeah, and I need to take you to Malmö Brewing.
Oh,
yeah. So we need to go. Yeah, we need to get Peter to Malmö Brewing, and I need to go to Aalborg. We need to do that.
You can come visit Bad Seed. Shameless plug.
Hell yeah, why not? Yeah, because Peter is now working for Bad Seed Brewing, and I've got one of their cans in my bag. He didn't give me it. I bought it. So independent review, don't worry. Yeah, but cool to have Peter. Hello to Nene as well, and yeah, cool to have us. One more tasting, and then I'll give you my final thoughts here at Amager Bryghus Taproom in Nørreport. Catch you guys very soon. Cheers. Alright guys, well, Peter has gone on to Panzer, so I was wanting to film one more tasting to round off my video here at Amager Bryghus Taproom in Nørreport, right next to Nørreport station, as I said earlier. So for the final tasting here then, we have gone for the Mortician. So this one is an Imperial Stout coming in at 10.5% ABV. This beer is quite interesting. Apparently, it's a blend of the Barrier Brewing Company, Mortician, and the Amager Bryghus Herr Fredriksson. And it's also got a little bit of Kenyan coffee put into it and some smoked malt as well. So this one is essentially a collaboration brew. But 10.5% Imperial Stout, bit of smoked malt, bit of coffee in it. What is not to like? So as you can see and as you would expect, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. When it was poured, it had a light kind of fawn coloured head. Actually, the head on this one wasn't too dark, but you can see it's pretty opaque, this one, but that's what you would expect of an Imperial Stout these days, so nothing really surprising there. But yeah, certainly it looks the part. I don't think we can really say much more about this one in terms of appearance. Not so much carbonation visible. Let's have a look at the aroma and see how we get on. Amager Bryghus, as I've told you many a time, these guys know what they're doing when it comes to Imperial Stouts. This is beautiful. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you smell the nice roasty, toasty, well-fire bread crust backbone. On top of that, you get a nice kind of thicker, brown bready kind of character. It's very dense, of course, which is what you would expect from an Imperial Stout. It's really nice. On top of that, you definitely get that kind of fibrous coffee bean sort of thing. As I've always told you, coffee beans are one of my favourite adjuncts to put into craft beer. You can get floral notes, fruity notes, aromaticity, all these kind of things from coffee. Remember, it's all about the MASL, the MASL, the meters above sea level at which the coffee's grown. The higher the altitude you grow the coffee at, the more likely you are to get fruity, aromatic kind of flavours and aromas out of the coffee bean. And then, you know, you can grow coffee all across the world. Africa, Central, South America, Asia, all of these kind of things. So it's one of the most diverse adjuncts that you can put into beer. Coffee, Kenyan coffee is noted as being very, very nice, but you can certainly smell that in this one. But yeah, you can smell that lovely fibrous coffee bean out of this one. It's quite an aromatic coffee for me. There's definitely little bits of kind of, you know, figgy, blackcurranty elements coming out of the coffee. It didn't say exactly what coffee bean they put in it, which would have been interesting to know, because then you can learn a little bit more from it. But certainly the coffee bean comes across very nicely. As I said, lovely aromaticity to it, smoothness as well. There's a wee bit of roastiness and earthiness in there, which you expect from any coffee, to be honest with you, but it goes across really nicely. You can smell a little bit of dryness from the smoky character. It's quite hard to pick up the smoky character because the coffee is the thing that really jumps on top of that, but there's certainly a wee bit of a dry, kind of powdery, chocolatey note out of this one, absolutely. You know, that sort of Nesquik, oh boy, sort of hot chocolatey sort of thing. I would say about a 50-60% cocoa chocolate, a little bit milky, but not overly milky and sweet, if that makes sense. You know, there's a wee bit of brown sugar in there, like a very toasted brown sugar. One or two woody undertones to it as well. Very slight nuttiness, but other than that, not too much to report when it comes to this one, to be quite honest with you. This smells really, really nice, I have to say. I really like what this beer has in store for us on the malty, adjuncty side of things. On the hoppy side of the beer, it's what you'd expect. Wee bit earthy, nice little bit of floral notes, a bit of light grassiness, not too much to report on the green component. Fruity wise, soft black currant, a little bit of a more oily blackberry, a little bit of a light figgy character, but these are all things you would expect of an Amager Imperial Stout. So I think we should try this one and see how we get on. So yeah, this is the Mortician. Let me get the glass round the right way. This is the Mortician, 10.5% ABV, a collaboration between Barrier Brewing Company in Oceanside in New York and Amager Bryghus in Kastrup here in Copenhagen. A blend of Barrier's Morticia, barrel aged, and Amager Bryghus Herfredriksen, one of the legendary Danish Imperial Stouts. Kenyan coffee beans, a little bit of a smoked malt addition. Let's taste this. This should be lovely. That's really nice. Lovely, lovely beer. I'm going to say thumbs up to Amager Bryghus once again. They've just done an awesome, awesome job with this. But we're used to this with this brewery. We know that these guys can do Imperial Stouts very nicely. So yeah, let's have a look at this. First impression is took a bit of that down the wrong tube there. Oh, always annoying when that happens, but it happens. So this is a lovely, smooth, almost slightly silky Imperial Stout. Beautiful stuff. Backbone of the beer in the middle third and the back third of your palate, you feel that toasty, well-fired, bread-crusty backbone. As I say, middle third and back third of your palate. On top of that, you get a lovely kind of thick, brown bready character coming out of the beer. And that sits there. Towards the front of that middle third of your palate, a little bit of a kind of woody, slightly nutty character coming out of the beer. Absolutely. So, wee bit of woody and nutty undertone to it. On top of that, there's certainly a bit of a toasty brown sugary element there, but then you get the big fibrousy sort of coffee bean notes out of this, and the coffee bean sits on that border between middle third and back third of your palate. You can feel a bit of the kind of bitter build-up in it, which is lovely. And the coffee bean actually comes out quite similar to what you'd expect from the aroma. Definitely a bit of earthiness in there, very aromatic at the same time. And you've also got some of those, you know, figgy, blackcurranty, soft, fruity characters coming out of this one. So it's really, really well done. So the coffee beans in this are very well selected. The smoky malt addition is actually quite hard to pick up in this one, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, this is, for me, this is quite curious actually. The smoky malt additions are a bit difficult to pick up. You can feel a little bit of them just in that border region again. There is a wee bit of a smoky, sort of rauchy type quality to this one. But as I say, I really like this. The further you go into the aftertaste, you get a bit of chocolate and brown sugar coming out of this beer. You know, a sort of 60% cocoa, not too milky, not too dark, somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. In the middle of the palate, some brown sugary notes there, a toasty brown sugar, I would say, slight oily sweetness to it as well. that absolutely works. And on the back third of your palate, certainly a little bit of a yeasty note as well. You can feel that slightly more airy, yeasty quality coming out of the beer. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, a nice little bit of earthiness there. Smooth as you come further forward, a little bit herbal, but as you push towards the front corners of your palate, certainly a little bit more kind of floral there, but quite a smooth floral note. Round the front curve of the palate, a little bit lighter and grassy, maybe even a teeny little bit of zestiness coming out of it. But it is pretty damn nice, I have to say. Another beautiful Imperial Stout from Amager Bryghus. I kind of wish I'd got a can of this one, actually. So yeah, I need to get a few more Amager cans to take back to Scotland with me. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, to round off the tasting part. Fruity side of the beer. For me, nice and oily fruits, absolutely. At the back of that front third of your palate, you can feel some kind of cakey undertones. There's a wee bit of raisiny sharpness, some juicy plums underneath. Then as you come further forward, you get a bit of a figgy kind of black curranty note, and on the very front tip of the tongue, there is a wee bit of that kind of blackberry sort of sharpness there. And these are all things you expect of an Imperial Stout. Lovely, lovely beer, this one. And as I say, wish I got a can of this. I could still buy one, so I'll think about that. But yeah, this is pretty damn awesome, I have to say. But on the, as we say, to round off this tasting then with the mouthfeel, for me, full-bodied beer, bottom end of full-bodied right enough, smooth carbonation, kind of silky at the same time, so that's really nice. In terms of bitterness, I don't find this one overly bitter, but I think, you know, you've got coffee bean in here, you've got a bit of hops, and a bit of toastiness. I wouldn't be surprised if this is hitting the 70-80 IBU mark, but I don't find this the heaviness in terms of its bitterness. I think about maybe 70-80 IBUs in this one. Common for an Amager Bryghus Imperial Stout. As we say, the Imperial Stout, this one, the malt base has toastiness, smoothness, a little bit of sweetness in there, and you've also got some nice big oily fruits. But this is a lovely, lovely Imperial Stout from Amager Bryghus. You know, it's got a bit of Herr Fredriksson in it, so maybe it's not wrong to say this could rival Herr Fredriksson. So yeah, I think this was really good. So yeah, this was the Mortician, a Barrier Amager Bryghus collaboration. 10.5% ABV. I've really enjoyed this one, and this is a nice way to finish off my tastings here at Amager Bryghus Taproom. So we'll do as we always do, we'll go outside, I'll give you my final thoughts, and we'll leave it there for the moment. Catch you guys in a second. Alright guys, well, just rounding off my time then here at Amager Bryghus Taproom in Nørreport. Nice to finally get around to filming here actually, but I had a really nice time. We did the Panzer pills, then I did the 3 IPAs with Peter, which was really cool. Nice to catch up with him after quite some time, and I will need to go to Aalborg to visit him at some stage. But then we finished off on the Mortician Imperial Stout, which was absolutely lovely. Really enjoyed that beer. Yeah. It was really cool to come here again and film. I think I've been here 3 times now, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this out and about video. All of the beers that I had cost me 195 Danish kroner, so for 5 different little 250ml things, I thought that was pretty decent. So 195 Danish kroner is probably about 25 euros, something like that, so about 23 pounds, something like that, and I guess maybe somewhere close to $30 US. So it was good, you know, to try 5 different beers, and with Amager Bryghus, you know you're going to get good quality. I think that's pretty good value. So come and check out the Amager Bryghus Taproom here in Nørreport. This was the first one they opened, and they also have their tap house down in Bryggen as well, which is in Amager itself. So yeah, go and check that one out. But really cool to film here finally, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. So catch you guys on another out and about video. Make sure you check out my good friend Peter over at the Master of Hobbits channel, and I'll see you guys again soon. Slanje, skull, and cheers for just now. Hope you're enjoying these out and about videos in Copenhagen here in Denmark.